All right, let's see. Is this thing on? Check, check. Yeah, that's on. Holy cow. Well, hello. Welcome back. Glad you're here. All that other good stuff. Hold on. Let's see what we can do here. Oh, that's as high as it goes. All right. Can we bring that in a little bit? There we go. Audio, audio, audio. That's the killer. Audio is a thing, you know? But you can't always put your finger on it. That's the thing with the thing. Hey, we'll talk some more about that when we get to showtime. Um, yeah, still can't connect to NDI 5.0 Connect. Must be something I'm doing. Probably something that I'm screwing up. Did find out that NDI 5.0 has a new version, 5.0.5. And with 5.0.5 comes the pledge from NewTek that the NDI launcher will let you know when a new version is available, kind of like what vMix does in the bottom left-hand corner, update available, where you can download it. So we will keep an eye on that, and perhaps one day we'll get NDI Connect to work. But in the meantime, we'll move on to other subjects. And had a great class yesterday. We do the vMix 101 class several times a year. It's a 6-week class, 2 hours a day, 1 day a week. So 12 hours of training. And yesterday we spent most of the time talking about audio and just had some great questions. Hey, George. Welcome, Martin. You thought you should listen to a show about audio. Well, your standards are so high. Let me kind of readjust your expectations down here. Yeah. But good afternoon to you. Glad to have you. George, hope you are well. So, yeah, but we had a great class yesterday talking about audio, and it reminded me that not everybody is an audiophile. Not everybody is an audio expert. In fact, not even everybody is an intermediate audio type person. There are a lot of us that are novices. Yeah, Mart wants to see what I might say. Well, yeah, we're going to start really basic. We're going to start basic. And so this really is pitched at those of you that are just getting into live streaming or thinking about it and are struggling with audio, you know, and because there's so many different piece parts to it, and they're not all evident, and they're not all intuitive. And they use different names depending on what you're doing. So, yeah. George says, what I'm having an issue with now is bringing Zoom into vMix. You'll get it figured out. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit today, George. At least we'll talk about the audio part of it today. So depending on which part you're having trouble with, we might be able to help. And John is here. John is welcome back. John has been down in Florida doing an install for Jeff Adams in his studio. Good to see you. Glad to have you. Hope you are well and survived the Central Florida heat. They say it's not the heat, it's the humidity, but it's the heat too, for sure. But glad you're here. Yeah, I remember getting started. Oh, sorry about this. We'll have to call you back. Yep. I remember getting started in audio, and this was, 2008. Audio was just an enigma. I wasn't an audio person to begin with. Yeah, I listened to the radio. We had a stereo at our house that played CDs back then, but I was not a microphone guy. I was not a mixer guy. I was not a mix minus guy. Yeah, it's been a trip. So I want to, kind of share some of that journey with you, and it will be done from a very non-technical standpoint, at least from my perspective, non-technical. Although you never know, what's non-technical to me today may seem very technical to somebody that's just getting started. So I want to sort of bring it down to a starting level, and we'll move from there. And I think this will be helpful. And this is specific, of course, to Windows and specific, of course, to vMix. But I'm stealing my own thunder, as it were. Speaking of thunder, holy cow. Well, I don't want to talk about that yet either. Hello, Christian. Welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're tuning in today. We're going to get started here. I keep looking up to the right, but really I've got a clock right here, right there, that tells me, yeah, it's almost showtime. So with no further ado, as they say, let's get a show going. We got 30 seconds. Let's have some lemonade instead. Country Time lemonade. Buy it in the big containers. Make it by the half gallon. Love that stuff. Really, really good. Okay, one of these days I'm going to get the countdown attached to a trigger. So when it hits 0, the show just starts. We'll see how that works. Okay, here we go. Sit tight. All right, it worked again. I just want to say, since he's in the audience today, that the opening and the closing of the show today were designed and built by Martin Kay from Manchester, England, Zen Video over there. And it was, gosh, it's been what, 2015, 2016, Martin, that you first made that. And I think it's eclectic enough that it fits this show perfectly. So I love it. Thank you very much. Martin's been a big supporter and good friend over the years, and I appreciate him deeply. Today we're going to be talking about audio. Audio? Is this thing on? Gee whiz. Yeah, we're going to talk about audio and look at audio. How about that? Can't just talk about it. We're going to look at it, and we'll listen to it too. So that'll be fun. But a couple of notes, first of all, before we get started. Those of you that follow the show know that for the last 3 weeks, not including today, we have tried to get NDI 5.0, the new NDI Connect, to work as if I was an idiot and didn't know anything. Not too far a stretch, you know. And I thought, don't read the directions. Let's just open up and intuitively see if we can't get it to work. Well, I tried 3 weeks. No dice. I was able to get it to work on my finally on my laptop, but have not been able to get it to work to this PC with my phone or with other devices. So I think there's still some tinkering that needs to be done on my end for sure, and possibly on New Tech's end as well. Previously, I think I was using the NDI 5.0.2, might have been 3, and just downloaded and installed a new one today, 5.0.5, and updated my Windows and updated my NVIDIA driver, and that didn't make any difference. What I did find when I was looking at the NVIDIA control panel is that NVIDIA sees 4 or 5 different NDI 4.0 applications, but no NDI 5 applications. I thought that was curious. And that was, brand new NVIDIA today, brand new NDI today, brand new Windows today. So don't know. We'll keep checking. We'll keep you in the loop on that one. Hey, Jan, welcome. Hello, Chris. Good morning from New Zealand. Good evening to Jan in, where is Jan these days? Denmark? Anyway, Swedes in Denmark or Danes in Sweden? Gee, I should know these things. Anyway, and good afternoon to Ed Horn as well. Glad to have you guys on board. I mean, if you can't get here on time, just get here whenever you can. That's okay. So speaking of internet, yeah, And this was kind of interesting. It's going to be a great story for me to tell and retell in the future. But Danes in Sweden, thank you very much. I think I knew that. Yeah, I knew that. How is Marie doing, by the way? She's been in my prayers lately. Internet speed tests. I do routinely. Hey, Ron, routinely before I start the show, before I start the live stream part of the show, because I've been doing show prep for, I don't know, an hour or more already, I will do a speed test. And so today I did a speed test, and I used the Ookla. I guess that's how you pronounce it, the Ookla speed test. And I use the same one every week, so it's kind of an apples to apples comparison. And routinely I get 99, 100 megabits per second down, and pretty much spot on 20 megabits per second up. And that's what it came out as. And I thought, oh, good, okay. And then I said to myself, let's check it again. Because, I don't know, let's just check it again. So I refreshed I looked for a, redo your test on the Ookla website. Couldn't find it. It's probably there. I just overlooked it. So I refreshed the page. It went to a different server this time. And the download was 14 and the upload was 3. Shocker. The internet broke in the split second between the time I tested it the first time and the time I tested it the second time. So I tested it again. Found a third server to test with. Same results. I said, okay, let's get a different test. So I got the, I don't remember what test it was. It hooked me up with a server up in New York City or New York State anyway. I'm down here in Alabama, and I thought, okay, that'll be a good test. We'll go the whole Eastern Seaboard. And that was about 50 down and about 9 up. So it was getting better, but it wasn't my 100 down, 20 up. And so I refreshed, I killed that browser window, brought up a new browser, put in the Ookla speed test again. And again, it was better. It was 60 down and maybe 14 up. So it was beginning to get better. Maybe it was repairing itself. Maybe it just got better all by itself. And then refreshed that page, tested again, got 100 down and 20 up. But that was probably over the course of about 5 minutes. And yeah, Rich is like, you mean everybody doesn't have a gig up and down internet? Well, I might have had a gig had it not been for all of this. But Maria's fine. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. I was concerned about you. What that tells me is, that was a major drop. And let's just look at the upload for a second. My upload dropped from 20 to less than 10 and stayed less than 10 for a couple of minutes. And I've had people poo-poo me when I've talked about, you don't want to plan on your live stream using any more than 50% of your available tested bandwidth. And hello, Norman. Welcome. Glad you're here. And Ron is here. Oh, I already said hi to Ron in Oklahoma City. Ron, I just shipped a PC out to your city, to a high school. Well, maybe it wasn't Oklahoma City. Maybe it was close by. Mustang High School. Anyway, I'm distracted by Jan's statement here. It says, rumor has it that the U.S. fiber backbone is using cotton fiber. Yeah, that's a good one. There are some days when it seems like that. But it drove home the point to me that the internet is not a fixed superhighway with a 70 mile an hour speed limit that never ever changes. It fluctuates. It ebbs and it flows. And sometimes it can ebb significantly. This was at one point, a drop of 17 megabits per second off of 20. So I'm streaming 2 streams. Each one is about 5 megabits per second. So that's 10. If I suffer one of these drops during this show, that's gonna nail both my feeds. Now, you know, maybe vMix will kind of try to ride it out as it does for a little while, and you'll get some buffering. But ultimately, I think this probably would have killed both feeds, and I would have had to restart them. And, you know, if you don't restart your feed soon enough, we're going to Facebook and YouTube today, they'll cut you off, and you'll have to configure a new stream if that's the way it goes. So Rich says that he's also got IPS. Well, it sounds like a personal problem to me, Rich. Anyway, intrusion prevention systems. Yeah, I don't worry about intrusion. Nobody's worried about intruding on me. So anyway, that's my little story about the internet, and also about NDI 5050. Norma says maybe consider installing SpaceX Starlink satellite internet service. Well, yeah, but what happens when a cloud goes over the satellite? Yep. Okay. Anyway, so let's talk about audio. I got to sit up, get ready here. All right. So here's the deal with audio. Windows has audio. Your PC has audio. vMix has audio. I'm using a Behringer Euphoria UMC 404 HD audio interface. Not a mixer, it's an audio interface. Plugs into my PC via USB. That carries audio. And since it's USB, I'm actually sending audio back out to the audio interface. I can plug a headset into the audio interface, and I can hear myself through the Behringer, and I can hear you if you're calling in or something like that. Really pretty cool. I've got this I love this mic. It's an Audio Technica AT. It's either an AT or an ATR. I don't remember, but it's an AT 897. It's a boom mic. It's a shotgun mic. It's a condenser mic, so it's real sensitive. It can hear a pin drop, and so I've had to do a lot of sound deadening here. But that's not the audio part I wanted to talk about. What I want to talk about with audio is, and let's go ahead and get a little screen cap going here. So we're going to add input. Should have done this earlier. Sorry about that. Desktop capture. Let's capture display 1. Is that the right one? No, of course it's not the right one. Desktop capture, local desktop capture, display 2. How about that? Oh, display 1 and display 2 are showing the same thing. Well, that's not particularly helpful. Let's see if we can do something else with this. Hold on. Okay. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. And what is the old-fashioned way, Tom? I don't know. Let's just stumble through. Yeah. Let's try again. Let's do 1. There we go. We got what we wanted. Okay. That is my desktop. Let's take that off. And I am going to open sound settings. So let's go ahead and move that over there. And let's do a sharpen on that one too. So that I'm going to count to 3, and at 3 I'm going to sharpen it. You can tell me if you see the difference. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Yeah, I know you can see the difference there. Let's see, where's my pink button? Pink button right there. Oh, the pink button doesn't work. Ooh, I got to fix that. Okay, so what we really want right here, this is settings. Actually, this is just your regular, what do you call that button that has the little gear icon? Oh, it's settings. Yeah, and I could have gone to system. I could have gone to sound. But really what I want to get to, and don't pay any attention to this stuff, I want to go to the sound control panel. And the sound control panel, and let's just bring it over here and we'll minimize that for a second. And I wish I could blow it up a little bit. I guess I can zoom it a little bit in vMix. Let's try that. Position, and we're just going to zoom. Yeah, there we go. So that you can see it a little bit more easily, because the show is all about you. All right. So When we think about these kinds of things, Windows calls a speaker something that does playback. And you can see here on my system, there are multiple devices that Windows recognizes are capable of doing playback, or a speaker, or what vMix might call an output. And currently, you can see these little bars here at the very end, at the very right side of these guys. And what about these down here? Yeah, they've got some too. And if there's audio present, you would expect to see something in these bars. These bars would be moving. I'm not sure why they're not moving, because I know there's audio on the Behringer out 1, 2, because, oh, no, it's not. That's right, because that would be an input. Yeah, so there's nothing going out. There's no audio going out anywhere. It's being live streamed, but that's not a Windows output. We'll look at recording here, and these would be microphones or inputs into Windows. And you can see, okay, now we're seeing some action here. The very top one is actually channels 1 and 2 on my Behringer. And the second one is channels 1 through 4 on the Behringer. I'm hooked up to channel 1, so it's going to pick up the same thing on both of those. The third one down is the Behringer 3 and 4. I don't have anything attached there. And then the fourth one is my Logitech C920 webcam, which of course has a mic built into it. And let's scroll down the list and see what else is down here. Yep. Okay. So you can see there are 3 devices that are, or actually 2 devices, but it's 2 different ways of looking at the same one. And the microphone is currently set up as the default device. Well, when we think of default device, that means that's the device that probably that Google Chrome would use if it wanted to use my microphone, something like that. And the default device over here in speakers is, boy, this is not going to make much sense, is it? Cable B input. Well, don't worry about the input part of cable B. These are some virtual cables I installed earlier today because I wanted to show you how they worked. So let's recap here. So we've got what Microsoft calls playback, which you also might call a speaker, which Windows would call an output. Actually, Zoom would call these speakers. On the recording part that Microsoft calls recording, you have what we might call microphones or inputs. All right, so now that we've got that technology straight, let's take a look at one of these. At one of these microphones. So I'm just going to double click this, and it's going to say, okay, here it is. You can rename it. You can change the icon, all that kind of stuff. But really what I want to know is, what's the level? Am I taking in 100%? Now, 100 doesn't represent any kind of amplification here. It represents 100%. So if I make it go down to 50%, that means that the microphone is only going to be able to input into whatever it's inputting only 50%. We look at the playback side of it for a second, and we'll just take this same one, even though it's not doing anything. We can look at the level, and we can see, hey, that's 55%. That's because when I'm playing audio into my headset, 55% is a good level for my ears. And I can hear things well without it being too loud. So that's good. And that's probably why that one's that way. This one may be different. No, that's 55 too. So coming down here to the speakers, let's see. Oh, I don't have speakers plugged in, so it's not going to give me any levels. We'll check out this default device here and see that the level is 100% on the cable B input. All right. So that's how Microsoft is going to do, is how Microsoft is going to name its audio. All right, let me do something here real quick. I'm going to sign into Zoom. Whoops, could help if I can spell my email address. And it would help if I knew my password. There we go. All right, so I'm going to just bring in my Zoom window, and yeah, we'll just bring it down like this so you can see. There we go. What I want is the settings button right here, so I'm going to pull the settings window up, and let's drag it in to our production here. And we're going to look at the audio settings in Zoom and see that an output from Zoom is called a speaker. An input into Zoom is called a microphone. All right, so we're going to come back to this in a little bit. And George, if you're still watching, this is what you want to pay attention to so far as the audio is concerned. All right, so let's go back to a desktop capture, local desktop capture. We're going to capture the second display. Yeah, that's my Windows, excuse me, my vMix. So we'll bring that over here so you can see now, and let's put something else in output. There we go. That's better. That's better. As we look into vMix, there are a couple of places where audio comes into play. In the bottom left-hand corner, add input, we have an audio input. Now, an audio input, get that window out of the way. There we go. An audio input is what Zoom would call, that's right, a microphone. An audio input is what Windows would call a recording device. That's right. So if I click this drop down here, I'm going to see, oh boy, I see more stuff than was in the Windows one. Well, okay. vMix sees more than Windows sees. And this is where sometimes it can get a little confusing. So we've got our cables. We saw those 3 cables in there, and there are 3 Behringers. And there's one called Line for NewTek NDI Audio. We're not worried about that one, but I think that may or may not have appeared on the Windows list. And then the microphone, which is the Logitech C920. So those are our Windows devices. Then this next one is UMC. That's part of the Behringer name. Remember, it's UMC. It's the Behringer Euphoria UMC 404 HD. So it uses a driver in this case. Well, actually, the 3 Behringers are also a Windows driver, but this is an ASIO driver. And an ASIO driver, it just really short, is a super low latency audio device that will, in this case, allows me to hear myself when I put my earbuds in real time. So I can talk through the microphone, hear myself in real time, no delay. It's great. Musicians love it for that very reason. ASIO is typically used on a DAW, and a lot of recording devices use ASIO. And vMix has the ability to bring in ASIO. The big bullet point on this one is that the 404 that I'm using, and actually that's the same device that the vMix guys use for their vMix Funtime live show every week. The 404 has 4 inputs, 1 through 4. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That didn't escape me. And the fact that it's an audio interface and not a mixer, and that it's using ASIO, means that I can bring in each one of the 4 inputs, each one of the 4 microphones, as 4 separate inputs into vMix. Unlike if I were to use Behringer 1.2, N1.2, that would be the first 2 channels, kind of left and right, so it would be kind of stereo. Or I could bring in all 4, and those are Windows devices, but with the ASIO driver, well, let's just do it. Let's don't talk about it. Let's do it. So I could bring in 1 and 2, I could bring in 3 and 4, or I can bring in any one of the 4. I've already brought 1 in, so we don't need to bring it in again, but we could if we wanted to. All right, let's go back to the list here. Now we have vMix devices. So these aren't Windows devices. These aren't ASIO devices. These are sort of internal devices, internal audio devices, internal inputs that we can tap into. And so we're going to look at these a little bit more deeply in just a minute, but I wanted you to see that vMix sees things that Windows doesn't see. Now, this list may or may not be dynamic. That is, if you unplug a microphone, it might still show up on this list. It might disappear. If you plug in a microphone, once you've started your vMix production, it may or may not be on this list. It is a wise move and a good habit to have all of your physical connections made before you start your PC, and definitely before you start vMix. Windows is pretty good about detecting if you plug something in or if you disconnect it. vMix takes a snapshot and pretty much ignores almost everything. Sometimes it'll update the audio drivers from Windows. Sometimes it won't. I've never really understood, and maybe that's just been different ways on different versions. But good idea is to have everything plugged in and ready to go. And by the way, if you're using something like the Behringer UMC 404 HD, Euphoria, and you're using more than one mic, and you've got your vMix preset made, and you want to travel, when you get where you're going, you need to plug your Behringer into that exact same USB port, because that's where vMix is going to go to look for those microphones. And if the Behringer is plugged into a different port, you may not have any audio. So, and I just shipped out a PC today that we made sure we marked a particular USB port for audio so that they would know to plug it into that one. It's a traveling PC, so we want to make sure that they have success every time. And we marked all the different ports so that they would be plugging their cameras into the same camera ports every time, so that they would be seen on their preset. All right, so this is the vMix input side. Let's cancel out of this for just a second, and we'll go to settings and take a look at the output side. Well, inputs are things that bring audio in, like microphones and mixers and things like that. And outputs are where vMix sends things out. Now, if you just got your vMix, let me set this one up the way it would normally be. If you just got vMix, it would look like this. The master output would be set for the default Windows playback device. Do you remember what our Windows default playback device was? I don't either. Let's see if we can find it here. Go to the sound control panel. Where is that sound control panel? Is it being hidden somewhere? Yeah, there it is. And the sound control panel says that the default playback device is cable B. Well, that means that my master output is going to cable B. I don't intend it to happen that way, but that's the way Windows has arranged it, because vMix says whatever Windows wants to do, that's fine by us. Same thing with headphones. Whatever is the default Windows playback device, the output device, the speaker device from Windows, that's what we want vMix to use. When we build a PC here and put vMix on it, we go in and we immediately reconfigure that to say none and none. Because otherwise, who in the world knows where the audio is going to go? What Windows has decided is going to be the default playback device today may be totally different than what Windows decides after an update it's going to have as the default playback device tomorrow. I want to be really specific. I want to know exactly what it is I'm sending and where it's going. I don't want somebody like Windows making that decision for me. All right. So if I'm listening to headphones, I might say, yes, I want my headphones to go to the UMC ASIO driver. Aha. Because that's what I want to hear, is I want to hear the audio coming out of the driver. And I don't want to say okay with this, because that's going to be, well, I'll show you what happens. If I say okay, vMix says, I want to restart. I want to go and look at everything that my PC has so far as audio before making these changes. I want to make sure what you're telling me is what's true. Now, I'm not going to say yes, because vMix is going to go it's going to restart itself and we'll lose the stream and the recording and everything. So I'm going to say no. And it does maintain those settings, although sometimes I'm not convinced that it actually uses those settings. So we'll change it back to the way it was just a second ago. I had A, B, and C enabled. You'll say, what does that mean, Tom? Hang on, sit tight. All right, so we've got audio inputs down here on the audio input box, bottom left-hand corner, and audio outputs up here, top right-hand corner, diametrically opposed are our audio outputs. And we've got the same list that we have with the Windows inputs and outputs with the addition of the UMC ASIO driver. We do not have that list that you saw on the input side of the different A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, because we get to pick those here. And we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, so let me check over to the chat and make sure that there weren't any questions that were just way too much. Mike says, very helpful tip about using the same USB port every time when using a preset in vMix. There you go. Yeah, and that would, Mike, that would be whether it's an audio interface or any plug. If you've got a Logitech HD webcam, plug it in the same port every time. And Xavier says using an ASIO output helps a lot for outputs as well as inputs, keeps things simple. Yeah, and with Behringer devices, that's right. It's a good point. You're going to see two different types of outputs and inputs. You're going to see the ones that Windows has, and then you're going to see the ASIO ones too. And so, yeah, with the X32, you'll see the X32 USB, which is the Windows devices, and the X32, the USB ASIO options. Okay, very good. So we're all good there. While we're here in the vMix desktop, a reminder that here's the audio mixer. It parks itself in the bottom right-hand quadrant of vMix if it's turned on. The little green light will tell you if it's turned on. And we can use the little thumbtack here and take it. Whoops, I moved it to a different monitor. And we can take it and move it to a different monitor. We can resize it. Come on, there we go. And you notice some of my inputs here are sideways and some are not. And you can tell they're inputs because this little bar says, hey, everything to the right of me is an input. And so if I right-click this, that restores these to the position they were in before. And I just had them collapse because they're ones that I don't always use a lot. For example, you know, dun dun dun, it's a sound effect, and ta-da, and the drum roll. Brrr, there you go. I know you were happy to have me do those. And so since I'm not using them much, I will close them out. This is a vMix call that I'm not using now, so I'll close it out. I do use Fresh and Fun. That's the background music. There you go. And then the AT897 is my mic, and then there's some other inputs here too. Now, each one of these inputs, you notice they're numbered 4, 8, 13, 14, 17, 26. That corresponds, and I'm going to park this back down there, that corresponds to an input over here in the vMix input list. So if your tabs don't look like mine, it's because you didn't copy me, but that's okay. The gray tab is always everything. So that's all of the inputs in vMix. And we can see input number 4 is minimized like this one is. Input number 8 is not, probably should be. I mean, it's not a big deal. But so for every input here in the audio mixer, there'll be a corresponding kind of major input over here in the input list. Let's see, let's blow this screen up just a little bit for a second. So let's find this guy. And where did he go? Desktop capture. There it is. Okay. So we're just going to blow this up, and we're going to focus in on the mixer section. So we're just going to bear with me for the infinity for just a second. We'll get that window out of the way. All right, so now you can see a little better. We're going to use number 17, for example, because this is my microphone. And this is the interface that controls my microphone. It's similar to an audio mixer. Not exactly the same, obviously, but similar to. We have a volume meter over here on the right, and you notice that if I mouse over it, it'll tell me my peak decibel volume, left and right. In this case, it's mono, and its left and right channels are the same. We have a slider here. Audio down. Yeah, slides my audio down. Like it. Come on, back up to the top. There we go. Very top, top, top. We've got a configuration icon here, and that's going to bring in the screen. Let's see if we can bring in where we can see the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. And you can see a list of options in the left column, my pre-fade and my post-fade audio levels. And you see there's just a hair's difference in between them in terms of latency. We've got the format, which we would not change here. We've got the channels. We could separate the two channels into two monos if we want. We could do gain if, for example, the gain on my mixer was cranked up all the way, and I was just going to, gut it out so far as signal to noise ratio. We could raise the gain, and that would raise the signal. It would also raise the noise. We can use the automatic gain control, which I recommend don't using. Because if you all of a sudden you're quiet, it keeps pumping up the gain until it hears something. And so, yeah, it's not a good thing. Not recommended. There may be times that you could use it, but I've never used it in however many years I've been using vMix, and I wouldn't recommend you do either. The delay, you notice I've got 50 milliseconds of delay, and that's because the NDI camera that I'm using, the BirdDog P200, has about 50 seconds of latency in it from the time the image is seen on the camera until it comes in and has been processed in vMix. So I want my audio to line up, and that's where you would set your delay, your lip sync. The other things that are going on here in this vMix audio settings for my microphone are plugins, and I've got one plugin. This is a VST3 plugin that I got from Waves Audio. I'm going to select it. I'm going to say Show. And what it does is it's probably an extremely complicated filter, but it's very simple to use. And it basically removes, well, it's a noise suppressor. It takes out noise. So it's going to take out the fan whir from the server right next to me that's running vMix. You probably won't be able to hear it. Let me be quiet for a second so you can hear. Yeah, you can see it kind of bounce up and down. Let me take this guy all the way down to 0 and see if you can hear the difference. So if you hear anything in the background, any kind of whir or buzz, that's probably that server. And 50% is about a good spot for it. I do have a kind of a big highway out in front of me. Well, it's not a big highway. It's only 2 lanes. But we get some trucks there, and sometimes the trucks will kind of exceed what I've got this filter set for, and so you'll hear them as their Jake brakes are operational. All right, so we'll close that. EQ, you can see that I've got the EQ enabled, but I haven't really done much with it. I've played with that a bunch in the past, and mostly figured none. Not using the compressor, but I've got the ability to set a ratio and threshold. Compression is not something that I thoroughly understand, but we may do another segment on that in the future. The noise gate is kind of interesting because it would do a similar thing to the noise suppressor, except it would allow whatever noise is in the background to come through when my voice comes through. So it shuts down the audio, or at least anything below a certain decibel level, And then when it reaches whatever the decibel level is, it opens the gate and lets all the audio through. I don't find that it works well with me. The channel mixer would allow me to, if I needed to equalize my left and right channels, I could. I don't need to. And then I can also use the matrix to send some audio as I need to, which I do not in this case. So we're gonna close. Oh, down here at the bottom is interesting. If occasionally there might be a device that you use, like a camera, for example, or an NDI device, that thinks it has audio, or maybe it has the ability to have audio, but you don't ever run audio through it. And so there's no sense in it taking up screen real estate, taking up space on your desktop with an audio input. So you can actually make this input invisible in the mixer, and it just won't show up again. You can also turn on this. I've got this turned off for headphones because I don't want to hear myself in the background. There is, again, about 50 milliseconds worth of latency in vMix. And so if I'm listening to the audio in vMix, if I'm listening to my own audio in vMix, it's going to be about, a 20th of a second behind my live voice, which is just enough to drive me crazier than I already am. So I'm going to just click that, make it turn gray. I can also, let's turn it back on, and I have the ability to control the volume just by clicking on that button and then dragging it up or down. And dragging it all the way down is the same thing as muting it. So, and that's present on all of the different tabs right there. So let's go ahead and close that tab. And that was just the settings right here for the mixer. Let's see, anybody have questions at this point? Scott says, Tom, just wanted to thank you for the help the other day regarding using more than one camera. Oh, problem has been solved. Good. Glad to hear that. Always nice to have problems solved. So we've got the settings button we just saw. That's the gear icon. Somebody said, oh, it looks like a flower. So yeah, the flower. The S, the solo, would be if I had multiple microphones, for example, or multiple vMix callers, and I wanted to hear just one of them and didn't want to hear anything else, I could solo them. And you can't really see it in my vMix production right now, but up at the top where the full screen button is, where the stream and record buttons are, or the stream and record lights are, the solo button has turned on. So we'll turn that off. The other button here is the toggle automatic audio mixing for this input. And what that means is if this is turned on, this audio will only come on when it's in output. Now, that's not what I want. If I had, we used the example yesterday because one of the folks in the class is a former race car driver and now owns some racetracks. And he has a camera down on the wall near the racetrack so that, and the camera has a microphone so that when the car comes by, and that camera is active as the car comes by, it turns the microphone on automatically because that camera is the camera that's in the program output window in vMix. And when that camera transitions out to preview or wherever it transitions out to, it turns that microphone off. In a studio environment like what I have here, I really don't have a purpose for that. So I routinely turn that off right there. That gets routinely turned off. And in settings, let's see, let's bring that window down here. There we go. In settings, under, I think it's options. Nope, sorry about that. It's under audio. I can uncheck automatically mix audio so that any inputs that I add after this point will not have that button. Restart vMix? No, don't want to do that. So any new inputs I add, that button will be automatically off. The button below it is basically the on-off button for the sound. If I press it, You can't hear me. You notice that or you may not have noticed, I'll do it again. My audio meter, or excuse me, my audio volume meter turned blue. Let's do it again. And that tells me that the mic works. There's audio present at the microphone, but it's not going anywhere in vMix. It's not going to the master. It's not going to any of the buses. It's not going anywhere. So if I turn it off, you can't hear me. Turn it back on again, you can. Down at the bottom, we've got 3 buttons, M-A-B. Well, really, we have more than 3 buttons. I'm going to right-click one of these buttons and see. We also have a C. You remember the back here in the settings when we were in the audio outputs? My setting for audio outputs, whoops, this is the one that went back the way I changed it, but I didn't save it. But this is the way it really is in real life, is that I have turned on channels A, B, and C. If we have time today, it doesn't look like we will, but we'll talk some more about that later as to why I would do that. So I have channels A, B, and C available to me, and I can route audio from my microphone. Let's say, well, yeah, we can't do that right now. We needed to have set this up later. But if I want to send my audio to a speaker or to another piece of software like Zoom, I might put my audio on one of these buses, A through G. Think of it as a highway. It's a highway. It's an empty highway until something is assigned to it. So right now, my A, B, and C buttons basically don't have anything assigned to them. So I'm going to make my audio go on channel A. So boom, channel A has got audio in it. And you notice right here, oops, let's put the master up. There we go. Right here, the channel A, bus A, now shows audio present. I click the A to turn it off, and the audio is not present in A any longer. If I turn the M, that means you can't hear me and nothing gets recorded. So watch what happens in the recording right here when I turn the M. Even though I'm talking, my mic is still active, it's not going to the master, and the master is what gets streamed and what gets recorded, unless you have determined it to be otherwise. Yeah. So that is our audio set. Oh, one other thing. Let's see. Let's find number 17 here over on this side. Number 17. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so this is my input number 17, which is the same thing as the 17 over here. Oh, you can't see that there, can you? Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's take the mixer off and see if we can get 17 up here. No, we'll almost see 17. It's just out of the frame. Let me adjust this frame, and we will be able to see 17. All right, there's 17 right there. So I can go into the settings for 17, and even though 17 may not show up anymore in my mixer because I've made it not visible, I can still get into settings kind of through the back door. So now I'm into the settings for channel 17. So let's make it no longer visible in the mixer. So boom, it's gone. So if we look at the mixer, we see 17's gone. It would be right there between 14 and 26. It's not there anymore. But I can come back here into settings, come back here to audio settings, and turn it back on so that now it does appear in my mixer where it used to be. All right. All right. Fun facts to know and share. Although careful who you share these with, most people don't care. You know, it's funny in the streaming world, after doing live streaming for so many years, and which is fun. I'm not complaining at all. But to try to tell somebody what it is I'm doing, I mean, people love to watch, but they really don't care how it was put together. It's like, it's like a good meal. I just want to eat it. I really don't care what you put in it. I just know it tastes good. So I get that. I get that. Yep. We're not going to have time to finish up with the Zoom part and the cable part. We'll do that next week. So yeah, and we'll talk some more. We might talk some more. We talk some about Dante, but that's definitely not beginner level audio. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to move to the post show. So if you've got some questions about audio you think I can help with, we'll garner them there, and we'll be right back with the post show. All right, we're back with the post show, and Michael Graves is here. Hello, Michael. Welcome. Hope it is not too warm in Houston area today. Let's see, and George, I hope that helps you. It probably doesn't help with the Zoom part because we didn't get to the Zoom part today. I'm sorry about that. And Eric is Eric, the check is still in the mail, Eric. It's still in the mail. No, I'm teasing. It's good. So we've got Tim again. What are we gonna do about these people? It's been a while since we've done this. We would talk about having snacks for the post show. Y'all remember that? And it was always kind of, mixed nuts. That would be you guys and me. And lemonade. Mixed nuts and lemonade would be the snacks in the post show. And whoever was late to the show had to bring snacks to the post show. Well, since it's all virtual, it's not a big deal. But it was really funny. It was 2019? Ken Benedict brought a pound of mixed nuts to the Streaming Idiots meetup. That was the time we had it on the floor of NAB, and it was fun because the caterer that was catering the floor of NAB in the Las Vegas Convention Center had fixed pricing on all of the stuff we were serving, and of course we were serving mixed nuts, but mixed nuts were, get this, mixed nuts were $96 a pound. So Ken smuggled in a pound. Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate that. That's my kind of guy. That's my kind of guy. Let's see. Byron's a big fan and a supporter. Thank you very much, Byron. Good to understand audio. We'll get some more of that. We'll get some more. Let's see. George has got, what is your preferred controller for audio? I'm running my AT897 Audio-Technica condenser mic, XLR, phantom powered, by the way, into my Behringer Euphoria UMC 404 HD. How's that for a name? Who came up with that name? Gee, many. Not simple. Anyway, my Behringer 404 HD, which is a 4-channel audio interface, not a mixer, it's an audio interface, so that vMix can bring in all 4 channels individually using the ASIO driver as opposed to the Windows driver that we talked about at the beginning of the show. So that is my favorite. Well, it's not really a controller, but it brings my audio, the individual channels, into vMix, and vMix then becomes my controller. I've got buttons on my X-Keys XK80 here that control my audio. I've got other mics here in the studio. I can switch to different live mics, and press a button to activate one mic. It will kill the other mic so that you don't end up with an echo. I've got another button that mutes all the mics in case somebody has a coughing fit or something like that. Oh, excuse me. So I really like vMix to control my audio because it's all in one place. I'm not searching around, and I like the X keys because I'm using the X keys for other things besides just audio. Now, if I wanted something with sliders, I have used a Korg Nano Control, K-O-R-G, Korg Nano Control in the past, and that was real effective with audios. It had sliders and it had knobs. And so if I had a situation where I was doing multiple microphones and I needed to mix them in that sense without having a mixer, I would use the Korg, and all the mixing would then be done inside of vMix. The Korg would just be the controller. Xavier says, so happy that we got more audio buses, but 8 is not enough. we really need 16. All right, UMC BMX, gotcha. We're looking for a USB mixer for an upcoming show. Yeah, that's a mixer is different. If you're a vMix user and you're using a mixer, a traditional mixer, even if it's a traditional USB mixer, it's going to bring a stereo input into vMix that is already mixed, because that's what a mixer does. Now, and even some quote-unquote digital mixers will still only output stereo. Now, something like a Behringer X32 has the ability to output USB all 32 of its channels individually via ASIO, so that you would be able to control all of those. But if you're talking about just a studio show, where you've got 3 or 4 mics, I just like the whole idea of being able to control all my mics in vMix. But I like to be able to do everything in one place. Some people like things kind of distributed around. There was a time when I had a Behringer, I think it was a Behringer X1202, a 12 input mixer, and I struggled with that one, frankly. I struggled with the out and back, of the audio, so that I could monitor the audio coming from vMix, which would be my vMix callers, as well as hear myself to make sure that I was properly balanced with my callers. And I eventually sold that and moved to the Behringer 404. There's a big brother to the 404. I think it's the 1820 that has 8 or 12 or maybe 18 inputs. So if you've got a lot of mics, that might be something to look like. And Guido is saying that the Behringer XR18 can output multiple channels as well too. So let's see. So let's put this sequence up. So Xavier says, so happy vMix gave us more audio channels. I said, 8 is good, but 16 would be better. And he says, yes, 8, it really isn't enough. And then Eric says, well, what about that old TV show, Tom? Remember that show? I remember the title, but I don't remember the backstory on it. Yes, Eric had an 1820. All right, very good. And that's right. Yeah, what do you need audio for? Audio is overrated. That's right. Audio is overrated. Yep. All right, gents, ladies, I appreciate you guys popping in today. We're going to have to tune out because we got to get on the road. We're heading up the road to the University of West Alabama to do an installation of a vMix system at their football stadium to use on their video board, and in their basketball arena to use on the Jumbotron there. So thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week for the conclusion of our episode on audio, or it may end up being more than just one more session, but we're trying to keep it basic so that those of you that are just starting out with vMix and just starting out with audio can kind of learn from those of us that have stubbed our toe and stumbled on a bunch of this stuff in the past. So tune in again next week for another episode of Streaming Idiots. And we will see you later. And oh, before we do, let me see. Let me go to, let me get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that. Got to, I need to get this post-show thing. The fireworks. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I want the fireworks, though. What I don't want is the text, right? Yeah, there we go. That'll do. That'll do. Okay, guys. Very good. We'll catch you guys later.